everyone, and welcome to another episode of If I Knew Then Mom Edition podcast. I'm your host, Maria, and I am so excited you're here. This podcast is all about real motherhood stories, those unfiltered, powerful lessons we wish someone would have told us before we became moms. Whether it was about healing or identity, or even those tiny humans who somehow they teach us more about ourselves than we have ever imagined. Yeah. So this space has it all. So today I am honored to have a truly incredible guest, Asha. Asha, it's so great to have you here today.
Pleasure's all mine, Maria. I'm Asha Puthran. Welcome to everybody listening to the podcast today. I am a holistic wellness coach and I specialize working with women, especially professionals who are facing stress, burnout, anxiety, depression in their line of everyday living. As moms, we're doing a lot of multitasking and sometimes it all gets a little too overwhelming. And that's when I step in and help them with tips, strategies, tools that they can use to thrive instead of the daily survive.
That's incredible. I guess you and I are both on a very similar journey because I think at this point I don't know if it happened to you, but the motherhood journey tends to be very isolating and we don't get that type of help, right?
Absolutely. They say it takes a village to raise a child. And I often say that you need a village of your own for you to be able to come back and live your fullest as well. As a single woman, life is completely different. And with a little one dependent on you as he or she is, your life is completely different. Your identity is different. Everything changes. And of course, you feel alone. We don't have the village that we used to have before with large communities. It's a lot of nuclear families that are just struggling and powering through. So it's a different world. It's a different time.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about your motherhood journey. How many kids do you have? Like their ages.
Sure thing. I've got two little boys. I always imagined myself to be a girl mom. And both the times that I was going to give birth, I was 100% certain that it's going to be a girl. And God said, I think you're more of a boy mom, and gave me two little boys, two little wonderful, wonderful little balls of energy my way. And life's completely changed. Life for the better. They bring out the best in me, they bring out the worst in me. I've never been on such a roller coaster all my life. They're still little, 4 and 6, and I named them after a scripture from our ancient science, ancient history, and they are my little teachers. They teach me patience, they teach me how to have fun, they teach me every single day how to wonder at the littlest of things, and they're so wise. They're so very wise for their age that I feel that we were little babies. We were little children. We didn't know as much as these little ones are coming up in today's day and life. They're great with technology. They learn so much they just soak up everything so nicely that you learn along with them. I just love being a mom. A bit more about my journey. I gave birth in my late 30s and I had some sort of an idea, unlike a lot of new moms, what it might be like because a lot of my friends and colleagues already had children and they had warned, Asha, your life is going to change completely. So I had some sort of an idea and I still faced a little bit of depression, postnatal depression for my first child's birth. Put in some, what should I call it? Some sort of a support system around me after that so that my next pregnancy and my next birth was a lot more smoother. So that's, in a little bit of a nutshell, how my entry into motherhood has been.
That's good. Well, I'm glad that, you were able to get that type of support and that you were able to actually notice that you needed that, because I myself went through postpartum depression as well, but I actually hit that when I had a miscarriage and it was my first pregnancy. And so being young and not being surrounded by moms, you don't really have these type of conversations, I guess. At the miscarriage, and then when my therapist was like, yeah, you have postpartum depression. I looked at her and I was like, yeah, but I don't have a baby. Like, what do you mean postpartum? And so she explained to me hey, just to let you know, you were pregnant, meaning that, yes, you were you are a mom. Right. And so that the postpartum, depression cycle, it's very powerful when we are able to acknowledge that it's happening and being open to be able to get that type of support system. Right.
Absolutely. I'm sorry to hear you had to go through that experience. And your therapist was absolutely right. You are a mom, nevertheless. Once we know and we decide that we're going to have a baby in our arms, whatever happens along that journey, we're moms and your baby's somewhere there, right? So, absolutely. And the emotions are, I think, a lot stronger when you have had such an experience. For me, it was a lot of anxiety, worry over the child because he would not latch. I had a traumatic C section because I was expecting to have a normal birth
Mhm.
and they induced me, but the pain was something I could not take. We didn't have painkillers or we didn't have epidural at that stage in the hospital that I had chosen. So it had to be induction and it had to be natural birthing. That went horribly wrong. That's when my depression kicked in. For the next 6 months, severe depression, child was not latching, and C section often means that your body is having a tougher time to recover. That
Mhm.
is why I was trying so hard to have a natural birth. That is where, a little bit of preparation would have been good, where if you don't have a natural birth, C section is still fine. If you have to feed the child lying down, it's all right. There are so many little bits of information that needs to be given to the mom before she
Mhm.
enters her journey as and changes from being a woman to a mother. And
Mhm.
quite often, like you said, maybe other moms can tell you, your own mom, the grandmom can tell you. And if they don't, then you're in for it. You're in for a tough ride.
Yeah.
So kudos on this podcast. And to everybody listening, please arm yourself with that information. And yeah, absolutely. Go for it. It's a life-changing experience for every woman.
Yeah, definitely. Both of my girls were actually C-section. The first one was also an emergency C-section like yours. I did have the epidural, but um, the fact of it is that apparently only 80% of women get 100% of the effects of it. The 20% either have
Mm,
like it doesn't do anything to their body or you
mm,
feel like minor. And I was part of that 20%. I giggle about it now because I'm just like, of course, like that would be the type of thing that would happen. But, if any new moms or pregnant moms are listening to this, we want to tell you guys these stories. It is not to scare you, right? It is for you guys to understand that things happen, right? And motherhood, part of like basically almost all of it, it's all very unexpected things that tend to happen. And so, we may have a certain plan and then doesn't go the way that it happened. I was also induced and the baby's heart will actually stop every single time I had a contraction. And it turns out that her cord was around her neck. And that's the
mm,
reason we had to do an emergency C-section. And this was during COVID. So it was only my husband and I, and I'm very thankful for that. I very admire any woman out there that actually gave birth without anybody by their side, especially
mm.
during those COVID times that it was so scary. And yeah, like it is crazy how, we go in birth with one type of expectation and then the possibilities of coming out with a different outcome can make a huge impact in your mental and emotional health. Because I'm pretty sure my postpartum didn't really go away. It just like escalated after there, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You're right about this one fact, right? Social media, the information that is out there, and the kind of checkups that mums go through are focused on the physical elements,
Mhm.
and everything psychological is sort of put aside. People don't really prepare you for what's coming up ahead of you. They check that the physical health is good, you're doing well, the baby's growing well, you're having your supplements, you're having your food. But what mental thoughts are you carrying? Are you ready for your identity to shift? And anybody that comes into your life after that, after the birth of your child, is often asking after your child, not you.
Mhm.
So we tend to take a backseat there. We need to be ready for that. It's not the
Mhm.
right thing to happen. It's important for the society to rally around you and say that it's a little bit of time and care that's needed for the mom as well. In the Indian culture and in a few other cultures around the world, 30 days after giving birth is treated as a healing time for the mother, where your family gets around you, where your belly is binded, you're given warm showers. There are oils that are used to massage your body and your joints so that the healing process is better for you. And you are given certain types of food. And the food is very nourishing. It's good for the milk and it's good for your body to heal. So these are things that may be taking a backseat and maybe getting lost somewhere in our modern world. And the opposite should happen. I see
Mhm.
that in some parts of the world, there are people trying to incorporate more and more of this. In some of the Asian countries, you have got hospitals associated with other institutions which provide such postnatal care. That is necessary for every mother. Like you said, kudos to moms and dads who are trying to do it all alone.
Mhm.
Divorces increase after birth, right?
Yeah.
Relationships get strained after birth. There's a reason for all of that. On the other hand, If your people around you, your village gathers around you, somebody is coming home not with just a baby shower gift, but they come with freshly cooked food for you and your family. And they
Mhm.
say, I'll take care of the baby, you go get a nap. Can you imagine how much of a difference that would make to the young couple? Those are the kind of practices that need to just happen more and more.
Mhm. 100%. I agree with you. Like, so I'm actually a sleep consultant, a pediatric sleep consultant, right? And a motherhood life coach. And that is something that I'm constantly like trying to get that message out because, it's especially here in the States is very demanding that once you have the baby, I heard that somebody had to go to like start working after a month after giving a birth, after giving birth, and there's some people that are lucky enough to have 3 months and then have to go back to work. And here, most of us tend to be, if we're lucky, we have maybe, a sibling or maybe aunts or maybe your parents if you're lucky, right?
Mhm.
And maybe, if you're lucky, you have a spouse or a partner that's willing to be able to be there, communicate and help you and understand the concept of healing, right? And then, but in this culture, we tend to do the opposite. It's kind of like so much guilt comes in as a mom. Like you just gave birth. Okay, but then you need to look like this and then you need to eat this and then you need to do that. And it's all by yourself and you're carrying so much, and then we're wondering why these moms are feeling the way that they are, all of these like societal like I don't know, ideas of what the ideal mom
Mhm.
is just not real, right? Because we shouldn't be doing it all. We shouldn't.
Yeah.
Like you said, it takes a village to help the mom to be able to raise the kids at the end of the day. And you're 100% right. Just like the olden days. That's the reason, if you have conversations with people, that are way older than you, like especially here in the States, they're like, oh, well, in my time, I didn't have postpartum depression or probably didn't think I had it, but we were fine, this. And it's like, yeah, because you guys had family, you had neighbors that you could trust and, be able to. But nowadays, most of us don't really have that.
Yeah. We both touched on the social media a little bit. It's important to talk a lot more. The pictures
Mm-hmm.
that we see from right from, happy families, and when they're giving birth, the happy baby bump, beautiful pictures, and then after that, you've got smiling babies, chubby little babies in your arm. None of that is a reality. Reality is babies with colic, crying all night long, diapers everywhere, the fights between the mom and the dad as to who's going to change and clean the baby, pumping your milk, making sure your baby has enough food. The baby, if he or she catches a cold or, at that young age, then you're rushing to the hospital and you're petrified because it's a little child who can't tell you what's happening and you have to decide everything for him or her. Don't go by what's happening around you in the social media or what someone's telling you. Go by your instinct and form a community around you. It could be something online where genuine people are sharing their experiences, giving you some tips of how to deal with, let's say, my babies, I'm not able to produce enough milk for the child. What kind of foods can I eat? There are lactation consultants, but for those that are not available, if you're part of a community that can tell you, have some oats that might help you, have some cookies which might help you, have some teas which might help you. It's important for you to get all of this in place before giving birth. Equip that knowledge through listening to podcasts such as this one or any of those resources and mentally prepare that your life's going to change this much. Then
Mm-hmm.
you have a little bit of a fighting chance to not be susceptible to something like postpartum depression or perinatal depression. It happens, for me, it was at least for the first child, it was right during pregnancy. Because in the third month of my, when I was carrying my baby, I had blood loss, and there was a good chance that I would have lost my
Lost.
baby. And because I was after 35, my doctor said, no more exercising. All you're doing is just taking short walks and making sure that because you're giving birth and this might be your only child, you're 35 plus, it's better for you to not exert yourself too much. That was probably not the great advice because exercise is important for you. You
Mm-hmm.
should learn to trust your body and exercise so that you can have a better birthing process and a recovery post birth. Maybe get a second opinion. Find a
Mm-hmm.
doctor that will work with you. Get all the options of, do I want to do a home birth? Do I do a water birth? Do I go to a hospital? Do I get a doula to help me through this process? You
Mm-hmm.
don't have to do it alone, but you
Mm-hmm.
need to. It's like if you're going to a very high university, you do a lot of things to in practice, isn't it? You study,
Yeah.
you prepare, you train, you get all the resources in place. This motherhood is the biggest university of all, and you really need to train for it I mean, maybe women, put in more effort for their wedding gown than they do for giving birth. It should.
That is very true. I mean, if you think about it, yeah, there's a lot of, with obviously no judgment, because at the end of the day, it's understandable because you're spending a lot of money, and you want to make sure that the day is perfect. But if we were to actually spend that type of time and even invest some type of money to be able to educate yourself in all of these different things, can make life much easier, right? Like obviously
Yeah.
trying your best not to go into like a black hole and just trying to like overly obsess over the amount of information, but ask
Mm-hmm.
questions, get into those mom groups, like just read upon things, and if you start feeling a little bit like too anxious or stressed out, like take a pause, take a breather, because yes, there's so much information out there. And the scariest part is that like in the pediatric world, or just like in the medical world, it tends to also be of more of like, what does a doctor really believe in, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, and I can tell you this much, like with my first pregnancy, I changed OBs 4 times. 4 times. Yes. Like 4 or 5 times. And it was, the first one was because as a new mom, before I had the miscarriage, like the first ultrasound, we saw the baby, I say thankfully because it was very early on, and we saw it. And I was like, oh yeah, super exciting. But one of my first questions, which was my instinct, right? I followed my gut to be able to ask this question. And I asked this doctor, hey, how do I know if I'm going to have a miscarriage? And I think that's a very valid question, especially if it's your first pregnancy, right? This man looked at me and he was like, well, don't worry about that. Right now, everything looks good. Just don't stress about it. He did not answer my question. Super dismissive. The second doctor that I decided to switch, they didn't want to see me until like I was like 13 weeks, 13 or 14 weeks. That's too late in the game, right? And then just the other one was gonna also be almost like ridiculous amount of time that I had to wait. Just things like that. And it's just wild, the fact that you do have to make sure that you get like second opinions and just do your research and see who you click with. Like, don't just pick the first doctor that you meet and that's it. No, make sure they can feel comfortable asking your questions.
It's so important to work with a professional who looks at you not as the next patient, but as a person inside out. And I want to emphasize the importance that if you've had a history of mental health before giving birth,
Mm-hmm.
get your psychiatrist involved, get your counselor involved, prepare
Oh my
yourself
God,
for this
yes.
journey ahead.
Mm-hmm.
It's so important because you're particularly susceptible to depression and psychosis after giving birth or even during giving birth. And that's so
Mm-hmm.
dangerous for you and the baby.
I'm so glad that
So,
you actually mentioned that. Yeah. So that is 100% true. Like, if you are ready in that, in that depression and that anxiety, or if you're already just naturally a person that you just overly like get very anxious or very stressed out very easily, start
mm-hmm.
talking to the medical like personnel, or
True.
midwives, doulas. There's life coaches, there's coaches like us that we are here to be able to help with these type of things, so that you don't feel alone.
True. And you expect the unexpected.
Hmm.
Just know what the different options are. Like your doctor was supposed to tell you what happens. Maybe it was your mother's instinct about what might happen. Nobody should get to dismiss your anxieties.
Hmm.
In my case, I wanted to have a VBAC after my first cesarean. Most of the doctors dismissed it. But it's a real probability for some women. You can have a natural birth after having your first birth through C section. A lot
Correct.
of people think once a C section, always a C section. That's not the
Hmm.
case. But you really need to work with your doctor and make sure that they're on board with it and they understand and they are for it because otherwise
Hmm.
they will go ahead and do a C-section anyways. So you
Hmm.
need to really talk to your doctor and have a great relationship with them where they know what you need, they know what you want and work with you, work with how your pregnancy progresses through all its stages and then even then have a plan B because like Maria you just said it, expect the unexpected. You don't know
Hmm.
what's going to happen, what route your baby will take to come to this planet Earth and into your
Hmm.
arms. Just be ready for that entire journey. Know your options, know the possibilities, and be ready. Take care of yourself, exercise, eat well. Just prepare. Prepare for the journey of motherhood because it's not unlike what is that? Like the Ironman marathon. I would
Oh
compare it to
yeah.
that. I would compare motherhood to that. Lot
Yeah.
of preparation for that D-Day, and D-Day is
Hmm.
the rest of your life.
And as soon as you learn that main lesson, that you understand that things can happen and things can change at any moment, because that is what motherhood is, the easier it's going to be. because that means that it's easier for you to let go, like, spit up and things like that all over if you already know that things like that can happen, or, like you go in wanting, thinking that you're going to have a vaginal birth and then end up with a C-section. A lot of us tend to end up with postpartum depression because we go in with an idea. But if you already have it mentally of kind of like, okay, this is the plan, but if it doesn't, I am going to be okay, you know?
Yeah,
Make sure, like, make sure you have the right research and have somebody there to be able to support you on so on and so forth. But once you learn that one lesson, it's going to be such a huge eye opener of like, frustrating. It's okay. It sucks. I wish it happened like this, but it's okay, you know?
absolutely. That's an important one.
Yeah.
Adaptability to what comes your way is a very important one as a mom. Maybe your baby won't latch at all. Maybe you've had that image of feeding your child, but the baby doesn't latch, and you have to give
Hmm.
formula. Don't be heartbroken. Fed baby is the best, right? It could be
Uh-huh.
breast, it could
100%.
be a fed baby. So many things like that. But
Mm.
taking care of the child, once he or she is on the earth, he may be a happy baby who sleeps all the time, eats well, or maybe he won't. You never know,
Mhm.
right?
You
Just
never
go
know.
with the flow. Just know that this is a possibility and don't have all the positive things in mind. Like you said, have plan B there as well
Mm,
so that you're just a little less upset over what happens. Have that.
100%.
And also, another important part, Maria, have these conversations with your partner. If you are lucky enough to have a supportive partner, fill him in on how his or her life is going to change for the better or worse
Yeah.
as well. Because
Mhm.
he or she is your partner in crime and they are your best support for bringing up that baby. They need
Yeah.
to know what to expect. They need to be in that Lamaze class with you. They need to be there on your appointments with you. And beforehand, maybe you guys can decide I do diaper duty, you do feeding duty.
Yes,
And if I
that's what I
wake
was
up
gonna
at 9,
mention. Communication is key for
yeah.
your own sanity. Like, have those type of agreements already beforehand, or, before you guys get pregnant, or if you're already pregnant, have those conversations and make sure that you both understand, and also have your partner understand what comes with the postpartum. Something that I did with my husband was that we actually had couples therapy before having the baby, meaning that the therapist was able to kind of like explain to him, what's going to happen and what can't happen, especially me already having the postpartum depression with the miscarriage. She was able to
Mhm.
explain to him in a better way. And, at the end of the day, they tend to listen. Your partner will probably listen to a professional more than yourself, because they might have a way to be able to explain it a little bit better, like differently, that they will be able to understand.
Very true. It's important for them to be part of this because they haven't a clue either. With us as women, at least our bodies tell us that our life is going to be so much different after this process. But what clue do they have? I mean, they don't have hormonal changes. So it's better that they fill themselves in with the information
Hmm.
and then you both going to have a better chance at parenting.
Yeah, 100%. And also be aware that they can also go through postpartum depression.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know that. And especially as men, like you're probably like, you didn't carry the baby. Why do you have? And it's a reality, because at the end of the day, though they didn't birth the baby, they're still going through a postpartum stage that is like, they went from not understanding that they're a dad to like, oh my God, I'm a dad. From 1 second to the next. We, on the other hand, had like the process of being understanding that we're mothers.
True.
Right. And so that is a whole conversation of is in of itself. But before we end this amazing episode, first of all, I want to thank you. And I would love for you to share the links that we're actually sharing with our audience.
Sure. So I've got all my socials. Maria will share that with the audience. I
Mhm.
also have an ebook which is a guide for busting myths around depression, postnatal depression. And this guide should give you a few practical tips and strategies that you can do to recover from a place of anxiety and stress. It is based in yoga and Ayurveda. These are the two systems of Indian science which really came to my rescue in my recovery. So there was food that you could eat. There is a routine that you can follow. There are exercises you can do. It's like building yourself inside to be the strongest version of you. And then I also talk a little about community. We touched on a lot of topics today, Maria. Some of it is mentioned in that guide, and it would be great. It's a free resource. People can download that, go through it, and reach out to me if they want more information.
Yeah, I love that so much. Thank you so much for sharing that. And if you are going through any of this, or, if you're even beforehand and you want to be able to get informed, please go ahead, click those links. If you have any questions for Asha, just go ahead and message her. I'm pretty sure she will be more than happy to answer because at the end of the day, that's what we're here for. We're here to be able to support you, and we're here to be able to be part of your community, to be able to give you what you are probably missing. Once again, Asha, thank you so much for being here. If this resonates with you, and if you love, sorry, let me repeat that. I'm going to edit that part. Okay. If this resonates with you, I would love for you to go ahead and like, follow, and share this podcast with any fellow moms who may need it or just who would just like to hear stories. And share if you have a story to share or a lesson or a laugh or a moment that has changed everything for you. Go ahead and message me, and I would love for you to be the next guest in our show. Thank you again, Ash.
Thanks, Maria. Have a lovely day to
You
you
too.
and all your audience.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.